give the attendees a chance to log in, get connected to audio. All our panelists are here with us, and I look forward to introducing them in just a few minutes. Happy Valentine's Day, happy Galentine's Day, and all of the above. I look forward to seeing some of the pictures from Valentine's Day and the pre-K programs. Okay, as people are joining, can you please go ahead and utilize the chat to say your name, your organization or program, and where you're from. One of my board members wants to know what a galentine is. I'll explain it later. Great, good representation from all across the state. Hello, Faulkner University, UAB, at Auburn, Birmingham City Schools. Got some reporters. Thank you for joining us and continuing to stay on top of this important issue. Okay, well, I think we're going to go ahead and kick off. I'm Allison Mullendorf with the Alabama School Readiness Alliance. We are a partnership of A+ Education Partnership, Voices for Alabama's Children, Alabama Giving, and Alabama Partnership for Children. Founded in 2006, we advocate for the expansion of quality pre-K for all 4-year-olds in Alabama. This is the webinar announcing our statewide pre-K task force's 2022 legislative recommendations. Pre-K task force is comprised of leaders from across industries in our state, from the top companies in our state with the largest employees, to providers of all types across the early childhood field, and everybody in between. We've got legal, military, we've got Head Start represented on our pre-K task force. And what brings all 60 members and growing together is we have a plan to fully expand Alabama's first-class pre-K program by the 2025-26 school year. And we're here today to announce the latest recommendations that will help us get there. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my wonderful panelists. And we have had a couple of changes on the panel. So let me go ahead and introduce our distinguished guests. First of all, I'd like to welcome Ms. Bradley Nelson from Lighthouse Academy number 4 in Mobile. Yes, let her wave. And she'll be chatting with us a little bit later about what it's like to be a first-class pre-K provider and why we need to advocate for funding for expansion, especially for private providers like herself that need the funding stream to serve more children and improve the quality of their programs. I also would like to introduce Representative Wes Kitchens. The Honorable Representative Wes Kitchens serves in the Alabama House of Representatives and is the sponsor of the bill that created the Alabama Legislative Commission on expanding access to high quality pre-K. That bill was passed last year, and the commission has been hard at work. And we look forward to the representative previewing some of what we might see coming forward from the Legislative Commission. So thank you for being here, for being a champion of pre-K in the State House and sharing your expertise today. Next, I'd like to introduce Mark Dixon of A+ Education Partnership. Mark serves as the president of A+ and advocates for great things for all children in all schools in Alabama. Thanks for joining us, Mark. We also have Collier Tynes with Voices for Alabama's Children. She is their new CEO as of November of last year. And Collier brings such a great perspective as a provider to Voices for Alabama's Children and has been just wonderful to work with so far. So she's going to talk a little bit about why Voices remains so involved in the pre-K task force and with the Alabama School Readiness Alliance and what you can expect from Voices coming up. And last but certainly not least, I would like to introduce our pre-K task force chairman, Bob Powers. Bob and I were just chatting about how long he's been involved in this effort. It's been 20 years now. And I know he has said in the past, I mean, that's a whole generation. I know he and I both can't wait to get pre-K expansion finished. And I just can't thank Bob enough for his steadfast advocacy, for his support, for connecting us with the Business Council of Alabama, with Alabama Power, on which he serves on the board of directors, and for everything that he does while running his small business in Eufaula. Bob, you're the heart and soul of this effort. And I'm going to introduce Bob at this time as our pre-K task force co-chair. And I'd like to also shout out all the pre-K task force members. I see a lot of you are on the call. Thank you for all your hard work. Bob is going to announce your pre-K task force recommendations. He's going to get started, and I'll pull up what they look like on our website while he does that.
Thank you, Allison. And I don't know about heart and soul, but I'm definitely a cheerleader. And the first class pre-K has not changed one bit in terms of how it was structured from the beginning. And that is high quality, diverse delivery, voluntary pre-K. And our recommendations this year incorporate those initial fundamental values that have served us well to this point in the high quality pre-K as being implemented by the Department of Early Childhood Education, and then right on through to our providers. So basically, the task force supports Governor Ivey's recommendations, which includes an additional $22.5 million state funding increase for the 2022-23 fiscal year. And we also propose some additional recommendations that support those values I just mentioned in first class pre-K's effort to reach at least 70% availability for Alabama's 4-year-olds by 2025 and 2026, while maintaining high quality and accountability. We recommend that first class pre-K maintain the 10 research-based quality benchmarks that were measured by the National Institute for Early Education Research, one of the institutions that has been evaluating the performance of Alabama's first class pre-K. We recommend that the Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education continue efforts to measure first class pre-K quality and outcomes through teacher and student assessments and longitudinal evaluation. This has been critical in terms of maintaining support through the legislature, through our elected officials, in the education system, and also with the business community. We support the continued use of diverse delivery grant structure for first class pre-K that creates high quality, state-funded pre-K classrooms in public schools, Head Start, and community-based settings such as childcare, nonprofit, and faith-based centers, which is where our 4-year-olds are. We recommend strategies and policies that result in more first class pre-K classrooms being placed in community-based settings. We recommend that the state invest in programs to improve the quality of existing childcare infrastructure, which has been severely challenged during the COVID pandemic. Full pre-K expansion will rely on a strong childcare system that is ready and equipped to meet first class pre-K standards. They all come together. We recognize that parents are the children's first and most important teachers. With that in mind, we recommend that first class pre-K continue to incorporate evidence-based best practices for meaningful, engaging, and strengthening families. We recommend funding and encouraging partnerships to provide high quality after school and summer programming so that working parents can enroll their children in first class pre-K. Workforce issues today, you see it on TV and hear it all the time. For parents to be able to work, they also have to be assured that their children have access to high quality care and education. That ties in with our first class pre-K objectives. We recommend that the Alabama Department of Early Childhood convene 2- and 4-year universities, expand scholarships, and expand apprenticeship opportunities to ensure that Alabama has enough teachers to reach pre-K expansion goals. This is part of the quality element. quality teachers, and a pipeline to add quality teachers for expanding classrooms. We recommend establishing a competitive salary and benefits for first-class pre-K auxiliary teachers who are required to have a child development associate credential or have 9 hours of child development coursework. State leaders can work with the CDA Council and other experts to establish a pay scale for auxiliary teachers based on experience. First-class pre-K funding formulas for providers should be amended to cover increased auxiliary teacher salaries. We recommend funding and partnering with school systems, Head Start, and other partners to provide transportation where needed, so children can get to first-class pre-K programs. This is especially important in Alabama's rural communities. We recommend exploring funding streams for investing in the physical infrastructure for pre-K expansion, buildings with appropriate square footage, age-appropriate classrooms, and so forth. Sources of funding include bonds and other avenues such as local funds, Federal American Rescue Plan funding, federal infrastructure funding, and business partnerships. That's a quick summary of what the task force is recommending. It keeps us in line with having high quality, diverse delivery, voluntary first-class pre-K in Alabama. Thank you, Allison.
Thanks, Bob. I just had a little bit of trouble unmuting myself. You would think after 2 straight years of Zoom, I would be able to do that. That was a great summary. And thank you to all the pre-K task force members for making such strong recommendations, and to the Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education, which has consistently implemented first-class pre-K at the highest level of quality. In fact, the program has been recognized for 15 years in a row as meeting all 10 benchmarks recommended by the independent National Institute for Early Education Research, which is based at Rutgers University. And some of those quality standards that Bob mentioned that we recommend continuing and funding, are those things that NEAR requires. And it's all based on research of what really helps that child, every single child, grow and develop, that teacher in the classroom being the most important thing. So the next part of this webinar, we're going to hear from Secretary Barbara Cooper of the Department of Early Childhood Education. She wasn't able to be here today, but I'm going to play a video from the Secretary kind of responding to our recommendations. And we thank the Secretary and Governor Ivey for all of their hard work as we enter what we hope will be the final 4 years of the expansion of Alabama's first-class pre-K program. So let me get that set up because, let's see. Okay. Share. And now I need some thumbs up from my panelists. Make sure you can hear this, okay? Just let me know if you are seeing and hearing this. I'm about to press play.
And for your interest, first-class pre-K, the items that the pre-K task force has recommended align perfectly with our department's plan to incrementally expand first-class pre-K until we reach full access of 70%. Although we all long for the day we can declare victory and all children who want pre-K can have it, we realize that we cannot and will not sacrifice high quality. The mixed delivery system is essential to reaching these goals, and we look forward to continuing our partnerships with public schools, private schools, universities, faith-based organizations, community organizations, and Head Start centers. When you speak with legislators, please tell them how you have seen pre-K make a difference personally in the lives of children and families. One story that I heard recently involves one of our first-class pre-K students named Jackson. Although Jackson is a smart, happy young man and has a caring home environment, his family wanted him to attend first-class pre-K because they knew he needed more social interactions. His mom is a kindergarten teacher, and she commented that she has clearly seen the difference between students who have been through first-class pre-K and those who have not. Just like Jackson's mom, we want all of our children to be ready for kindergarten in every way possible. The developmentally appropriate environment that our pre-K classrooms offer is essential to not only the success our students have in kindergarten, but making sure they stay ahead or are ahead of grade level throughout their educational journey. We know one of the biggest influences for each of us is our very first school teacher. I can remember mine, and I bet you can remember yours. Our workforce of almost 3,000 educators work hard every day to create classrooms that spark imagination and start students on a lifelong love of learning. Our first teacher home visiting program works with parents, our very first teachers, as they navigate the challenging jobs that parents have in raising successful children. I am glad that through our birth through age 5 programs, we are able to work with child care centers of all kinds as they seek to create intentional, developmentally appropriate learning environments that will provide brain building activities before children enter pre-K or kindergarten. Thank you, ASRA, for your involvement today and for your commitment to investing in our youngest citizens while we have the opportunity to make the greatest impact. Your enthusiastic support of the work that we do at the Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education is very much appreciated.
Well, I have thanked the secretary for her video and her leadership. She began in 2020 in the middle of a pandemic and has really shepherded the Department of Early Childhood and the continued growth of first-class pre-K, even in a pandemic with all of its challenges. So we thank her for her leadership, and again, thank Governor Ivey for selecting such a wonderful secretary and supporting her in her leadership of that very special state agency. How we're going to continue with our panel, which I'm really excited about. First, we're going to talk to Representative Kitchens. I know it's a busy time right now. You're in the middle of the 2022 legislative session. You sponsored the bill last year that created the Joint Legislative Study Commission on expanding access to quality pre-kindergarten. Thank you, Representative. What motivated the bill, and what are your goals for the commission?
Well, thank you, Allison, and thank you to our other panelists today. It really is an honor to be here and to talk with you. This was a very exciting thing that we were able to do last year through our legislative session, and then the work continued, a lot of meetings down here in Montgomery and around the state. The thought process behind our commission and forming the piece of legislation that got us there, Governor Ivey has made it a point, and we talked about it earlier, to reach that 70% threshold of access for pre-K. Our job as a legislature is to appropriate funds. So we wanted to make sure that as we reach that 70% goal, one, are we doing it in the most appropriate way as far as maintaining the same high quality? So our number one issue was looking at the quality that we have. We're nationally recognized. People from around the country, we've had people that have reached out through our commission asking us things that we found. So it's been very exciting to hear from people all around the country that are looking at Alabama as a model for what quality pre-K can be. So we want to make sure that we maintain the high quality, and we want to make sure that as we continue to appropriate more funds, the recommendation from the governor and from the report that we just were presented a few minutes ago, those recommendations of the $22 million increase this year, we want to make sure that those funds are truly going in the most appropriate way. And we feel that a lot of that is going back into the classrooms to make sure that we are continuing to grow, to make sure that we're having that high quality and to make sure that we reach that 70% threshold. So we were able to bring in both House and Senate members. It was a joint commission, and panelists that are here today were they actually came and they talked with us during the commission proceedings. But one of the things that I felt was probably the most eye-opening experience, we're very familiar with our districts, and we represent on the House 105 districts around the state. The Senate has 35. So 140 people are representing multiple areas around the state, and we know what our district looks like, but we have the opportunities to go look at some of the mixed delivery methods and see how it looks here in some of the facilities like Faulkner and some of the places here in Montgomery that I'm not familiar with from my district up in North Alabama. So it was able to bring a lot of legislators from both the House and Senate and really get in classrooms and see the great work that our lead teachers and our auxiliary teachers are doing, and just the great work from the department. So it was some exciting times. A lot of our report really mirrors a lot of the things that we talked about on here in maintaining that high quality, the expansion piece, and reaching that goal. So again, thank you all, and it was an honor to serve as the chairman of co-chairman with Senator Chastain from South Alabama.
Yes, and we have really enjoyed working with Senator Chastain over the years as well, and he's helped shepherded some of those funding increases through, and it's always been so helpful on that funding committee as well. So please thank him on our behalf, and I'm sure I'll be seeing both of you later this week at the State House, and as you start working on the budgets. And I hope you will stay on if you can, Representative, because there will be a couple questions posed to the whole group. And if you need to get to your legislative business, we also understand that. Now, the next question I have is for Ms. Nelson. Your Early Childhood Education Center, Lighthouse Academy #4 in Mobile, has funding for first class pre-K. Can you tell me about what that process is like, how many classrooms you have, and what the impact has been?
Okay, sure. Well, we actually have 5 locations. 3 of our locations have the pre-K program, and my location is actually in a very poverty-stricken area. So I get a lot of children with delays, a lot of stuff that's going on, with them. The parents don't really know or have the resources to, get the help that the kids need. And with them being in this program, we're able to, catch those delays, and just to see the child from when they start and where they are to where they end up like middle ways of the year. You just know that it's very beneficial to this area, and it's really needed. Not only that, it just it sets the bar for our whole program as a whole. Just having a pre-K class, it changes the demeanor of the whole building. I mean, all the other classrooms are kind of looking at how they model, their classroom, and they're trying to take on, the same aspects in their classroom. So it really helps with us having them, having them help coach our other teachers, so we can all kind of be on the same page. So when those kids do go to that 4-year-old classroom, they're pretty much ready. So I think it just sets the bar for any program that's private as a whole anyway. Yeah, we love our pre-K program. It's very beneficial to this area.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nelson. And I know we're really proud of all of the pre-K programs in public schools and Head Start, but we've noticed a big uptick in recent years of childcare centers applying, and I think they see what you're doing at your center and at other centers, and that this is a large source of funding to do what you want to do, which is have a quality program that also supports the parents. So thank you for sharing your perspective, and I hope you'll stay on as well, as we continue this panel discussion. But I know what it's like. I know that things come up in childcare centers. So if you need to go, we just thank you so much for being here today and for everything that you do every day. Now, my next question is really for both Bob and Mark. From the business perspective, starting with Bob, why does the Alabama business community support investments in first class pre-K? And then if Mark could build on what Bob says and talk about, as the president of A+ Education Partnership, advocating for great schools for every child in Alabama, why that matters for the K-12 sector as well. I know it's a continuum. So let's start with Bob and that workforce perspective, and then bring it down to that K-12 level, starting with Bob Powers.
Well, going back to the 90s and even NAFTA, the business community has always had challenges on workforce, having qualified workers available, and training in those respects. Even before we'd have our colleges and two-year institutions be concerned about how well prepared our students were for college, 2-year, and then of course the workforce. So when we started discussing first class pre-K, the initial impression from the business community was that it was just going to be another daycare program. And it's much more than that. It is high quality preparation for a student to go into, a young child to go into kindergarten prepared to learn. And that sounds good, but once again, not only the business community, but our elected officials want to know whether it's going to work or not. So from the get-go, we looked at studies. Initially, we had to do anecdotal evidence and teachers and folks looking at their programs, which we only had, initially, there was only like 6 or 8 trial programs. And as we expanded it, got up to 6% and so on, the people wanted to see the numbers, particularly when the legislatures put money into it. And then also local business leaders wanted to decide whether they'd support it or not. So we've had a number of studies in Alabama that have started to track the quality of our first class pre-K. University of Alabama, Birmingham, and PARCA have collaborated in a research, and they're doing a longitudinal study following the students, not by name, but by number, and keeping track of their performance from grade to grade. And what we found is that in Alabama, our high quality program has helped students with reading and math, attendance, discipline, just across the board, the things that you want to have, not only in the classroom, but eventually in the workforce. So those studies have helped reinforce what's taken place. The few numbers that we've actually been able to get all the way through 12th grade now, because the funding has been progressive, have proven well. And we've seen that the graduates from K through 12 who've been pre-K alumni performed as well or better than those who didn't have high quality pre-K. That type of evidence has reinforced the business community. It's another reason why the business community has stayed the course in this, because when we start to educate somebody as a 4-year-old, it takes a few years before they get in the workforce. And so it's important that we do this high quality at the beginning. It's important that we stay aware and track and follow it. And that's the aspect of why business community has bought into this. It's working well in Alabama. Does that answer it? You're mute, Allison.
Well, don't even need me, but I'd like to bring in Mark to say why that matters to the K-12 and to kind of share your perspective as an education advocate and expert on the research that's ongoing.
Thanks, Allison. I totally agree with Bob. The quality is so critical, but also, I mean, from a K-12 standpoint, you need that strong foundation. Whether a child is coming into kindergarten, whether they are not coming through kindergarten and start in the first grade, without those initial supports, that child is going to be catching up for the rest of their time in K-12, and in many cases not catching up. And so having that strong kindergarten experience, but also then working that down as we made the decision here in our state to invest heavily in early childhood, that is absolutely critical to making sure that there is success long term. You know, talked a lot about brain development and the importance of starting early, and that starts before pre-K. But to reinforce and for pre-K to be that bridge from childcare of all types to begin that preparation to make sure that they're ready to enter kindergarten is absolutely critical. You know, it's not abnormal to have 3 different grade levels in kindergarten and first grade of kids that are trying to adjust and to learn. And so the more that we can narrow those gaps, the more that we can provide support, especially those from economically disadvantaged backgrounds, and to make sure that we're giving that strong foundation to set them up for success is absolutely critical.
Thank you, Mark. And if you look at our recommendations on the website, you'll see that not only did the longitudinal study, which has followed students through the 8th grade, find that first class pre-K students were more likely to be proficient in reading and math than their peers in every grade studied, but also they were less likely to need special education services, less likely to repeat a grade, and they had fewer disciplinary issues. So some of those results even surprised the researchers at UAB, because it's really difficult to get such significant differences in the pre-K kids and the non-pre-K kids, especially after you're controlling for school, income, demographics. So regardless of all of those things, when you look at equal groups of students, first class pre-K is significantly bettering the lives of those who have it. So we've got to keep ticking up access. You know, just a few years ago, a very small percentage of kids had access. So thanks to the legislature, that's a lot bigger now, but it's going to take some time to see that, you know, those children matriculate through the system as we get into cohorts of grades that have had more and more pre-K. And we'll be watching for that, not just across the state, but in communities that, you know, we work very closely in with our partners to make sure that if the kids start coming ready to school, that the schools are ready to receive those ready children. So we really appreciate A+ leadership in that area. My next question is for Collier, another one of our partners with Voices for Alabama's Children. Tell us a little bit about Voice's role in promoting pre-K and why this remains a priority for your organization.
Well, I'm actually going to, what we just talked about bridges this perfectly. You know, so many of our state's issues are driven by poverty. And I just want to talk about for a second, you know, when looking at Voices and our role and why we support pre-K, it's because we're unapologetically focused on facts. And the facts are that if children have access to high quality pre-K at age 4, they are more likely to be able to be proficient in reading and math by 4th grade and 8th grade, and then when they launch into the workforce. And that's it. And also at the same time, what pre-K does, let's think about what it does for parents. Right now, working parents are paying on average more than in-state college tuition per child in Alabama, just to leave their child in a safe place while they work. We are taxing working parents with something called childcare. We're penalizing the same people that are trying to go to work and leave their children in a safe place. And for, you know, parents who have the resources and the means to be able to pay that kind of care for their children, it's a stress. But for parents who don't have the resources and the means to do that, it's a weight that's not necessary. So pre-K does 2 things. It not only supports children's brain development and their abilities to become strong wildly successful adults, but it also gives Alabama parents a raise. I hear so many people talk about, the greatest raise that I got was when my kid went to K-12 education, which is silly at this point. So I am not surprised that that we see improvements in chronic absenteeism when children go to pre-K. Why? Because parents are engaged faster with quality education. And that is critical. As I told Secretary Cooper in a meeting, it's not just the child going to kindergarten or first grade when they're ready for kindergarten or first grade. It's also mommy, daddy, grandmama, auntie, foster parent, whoever is caring for the child. They're transitioning to kindergarten and first grade too. So pre-K does great things for parent engagement.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Collier. We're so glad that you're at the helm of Voices, and we look forward to continuing to partner with you to work on pre-K and other things that matter for school readiness. Now I'm going to pose a question to all of our panelists. What, from your unique perspective, what would an additional $22.5 million investment in pre-K and that additional 125 classrooms that would come with that mean for our state? Let's start with the representative.
Well, I think one thing that we talked about through our commission is the strategic partnerships, and we've heard that a lot. One thing that we've seen a lot is we don't have the brick and mortar available right now for a big expansion of pre-K classrooms. So what are those partnerships we can have? And a lot of that's the faith-based organizations, the private child care facilities. All of that can be kind of lumped into that together, but that's going to be a major issue, is working on those strategic partnerships. I was surprised to learn how many private child care facilities didn't even know that was an option for them. So making sure we get that message out there that lets them know what is available and utilize it. So we can get in the communities that are underserved, the different parts of the state that are underserved. But then I think a lot of that will go back to in some of the other things that we need funding for: transportation, the equal pay for the teachers and auxiliary teachers to make sure that they have the resources necessary that make them want to stay in the pre-K classroom. So I think there's a lot of things that we're going to be looking at relating to the funding, but I guess the number one thing will be making sure that we develop those strategic partnerships, both private and public schools.
Thanks, Representative. I'm going to put my contact information in the chat. So if anyone is interested in helping to create some of those partnerships, you can reach out directly to me. Caller, if you want to put your contact and Mark, and Ms. Nelson from Lighthouse, so she can share with providers peer-to-peer what it's like to be part of first class pre-K and how to make it work. So let's get some contact info into the chat for our experts, if you're able to share it. And then we'll also send that out at the end with the recording and the other resources for the webinar. So I'd like to hear your perspective, Bradley, on what that additional funding would mean, especially since we're really still in a pandemic.
Yes, the pandemic kind of did put like a little, damper on the enrollment, and it's kind of been up and down just because of, COVID outbreaks and stuff. But I would definitely be interested in doing another classroom because I just see the benefits of it, and the community that I'm in, they really need it. It's a lot of 4-year-olds that are still at home. I've been trying to campaign, trying to go in the neighborhoods, because some kids are like just home doing nothing, absolutely nothing. Parents don't know about these resources. So I think it's a good thing that we have extra funding for it, because it could be very helpful to the low poverty communities, definitely.
I hear that. Does anyone else want to weigh in?
I'll just add one quick thing. We've talked a lot about quality. Bob discussed it. Representative Kitchens has reinforced that was the reason for the commission. I think continuing the funding and making sure that we are making steady progress is a critical part of that commitment from the legislature, from the governor, and to show that on an annual basis, but to also reevaluate where we need to adjust from a quality standpoint. We've seen some research recently. We talked a lot about that our benefits in Alabama last beyond 8th grade, which is one of the highest certainly we've seen around the country and is an excellent study. But we've seen some studies recently where quality has slipped in some places. And as they expanded and they expanded too quickly, they lost sight of what that quality component looks like. We have, really since this expansion began in 2007 and the state made a commitment to first class, that steady commitment and steady and to go slow in terms of implementation, in terms of numbers and access, while maintaining the quality has been a key ingredient of this success. And to measure that as we go. And as much as it would be just wonderful to expand this to all 4-year-olds today that want it, the capacity and everything that doesn't exist, some studies show that can be harmful. And so our ongoing commitment to that quality and to maintaining that structure is absolutely critical in this last mile over the next 4 years to make sure that quality remains and that we're effective.
Thanks, Mark. And I put the link to the UAB PARCA study in the chat. That has now been published in a peer-reviewed journal, which means it adheres to the highest standards of research. So you can go to our summary at alabamaschoolreadiness.org/Alabama-pre-K-results, but that will take you to all the links that you need. Great. Well, I also want to let everyone know right now of a couple other important announcements regarding Alabama's first class pre-K program for 4-year-olds. First of all, pre-registration is open for families, and the children must be 4 by September 1st of this year. That's the only requirement. They must live in Alabama and be 4, and then in the spring they will be drawn via random drawing for each classroom, and that is available at children.alabama.gov, and also at that website, children.alabama.gov. Providers can gain access to the first class pre-K funding application. And if you have any trouble finding any of that, just go ahead and send me an email. I will get to it eventually, and we'll do everything we can to connect you with people in your area who can help you. And I wanted to bring Collier back into the conversation because Voices has a very important product that a lot of folks use when they're filling out their application for first class pre-K funding. Collier, tell me more about the Kids Count Data Book.
Got to unmute myself. Thank you so much, Allison. We are very excited to launch the new edition of the Alabama Kids Count Data Book. For those of you who do not know about the data book, this is the gold standard of information produced every year about all things children's health, education, safety, well-being. We're really looking at all of the domains that impact the outcomes that we see for children, all in one place with the Kids Count Data Book. And so this year's book, when we launch it, I'm very excited to let y'all know that it's really focused on not only just dumping numbers at you, but in each of your efforts to do, say, pass, and fund what it takes to see these numbers and outcomes change for children. It will give you factors to consider, things to be thinking about in your efforts to move the needle. Because I don't know about you, but I am very tired of seeing Alabama ranked in the bottom 10 for very important issues every single year. But the thing is we can make these numbers change. And we know this because ASRA, this group right here, has made numbers change. Over the last 15 years, this group has used data, it's used the book, it's used what you know about quality and tracking outcomes to help 3 administrations, 1, 2, 3 administrations expand over time the nation's leading quality pre-K system. That's huge. So I'm thrilled to launch this year's data book. I will put this link in the chat once again so that you can give us your information and be sure to get the link and the information when we launch it this month. Because I really would love to assist you in your efforts to do Say Pass Fund what it takes to change these numbers for children. We do not have to live in a state where 1 in 5 children are food insecure. We do not have to live in a state where 24% of children are living in poverty or households that are making less than $24,000 a year. It doesn't have to be that way. So I look forward to working with each of you to see what we can do in every county so that every child and every family can succeed.
Thank you so much.
Allison, can I chime in on that?
Please do.
Collier's right on, and our first class pre-K is a model, and it is working, and it's having a very positive impact on the few who've had access to it so far. But that's just one part of creating a culture to develop our children and the education environment in Alabama so that we have productive citizens at the end of the 12th grade. And the efforts that have taken place with the ASRA board, the ladies who started that, and all the volunteers who are participating, everybody on this webinar here, and all those who've come to other meetings, we are the voices and the individuals helping make this change happen. And it makes a difference. Pre-K is one part of that. It's a critical part that we keep it expanding and have the long-term impact that it can have. And now also the recognition that these other programs, Collier referenced them very well, and it's outlined very well in the Kids Count, programs that if we take the same attitude, we can change it. We can change the culture of this and not just have a few benefit, but have all our children in Alabama have this opportunity. I want to thank everybody who's participated in the task force for years. I want to thank all of you who've just started to participate. And my experience is every time there's a new group of parents at the 4-year-old age, we still have a large number we have to educate. Every time we have a principal change, we got to make sure that principal understands what's taking place with high quality pre-K, or the superintendent, or the state board of education, or the local school boards, or the new manager at the plant. Understand how we can have a role in this. It's a long-term commitment. And I want to thank everybody for their role in this, because you are making a difference.
Thank you so much, Bob. Couldn't agree more. And we thank all of our advocates. For those of you who might be new to pre-K advocacy in Alabama or want to spread the word, we've got a lot of great resources on our website, alabamaschoolreadiness.org. And there's also been a documentary film, a feature documentary film made about early childhood in the United States called, Starting at Zero, Reimagining Education in America. So if you want to look up Starting at Zero, one of the features of that full-length feature documentary film, which came out in 2020, is there's a whole case study on Alabama's pre-K program. And people really have taken notice, as Representative Kitchens said. And in fact, the Boston Globe just had a front page article, very in-depth article about what we're doing right here with pre-K in Alabama and what they still have remain to need to do in their state for their youngest learners. So I thought that was an amazing contrast. So we do have one question from Erin Davis. Hey, Erin. She asks, what pieces of legislation from the current session will help expand early childhood education? Erin, I answered your question in the Q&A, but I want to share with everybody that I have put the link in the chat to ask your state senator and your state representative to support the recommended $22.5 million increase that Governor Ivy and our pre-K task force recommends. And that is in the Education Trust Fund budget legislation. It's starting in the House this year. And Collier might know the bill number, or Mark, but it does have a bill number. But when you contact your lawmakers, you just need to say, please support pre-K in the Education Trust Fund budget. That's the education budget in our state, or the ETF budget.
Yeah.
That's where the line item is. You can see the increase in some of the spreadsheets that come out. Does Collier or Mark want to add anything else that we're tracking?
Yes, in fact, I would love to add other things that we're tracking. Y'all, this ETF is fantastic. I cannot reiterate this enough. The governor's recommendations for children's care, this is record breaking. We're talking $41 million of recommended funding to go to the care of children from birth to K-12 education. So there's a $17.8 million recommended increase for quality childcare. So for children from birth to 3 or before kindergarten, these children need access, and their parents need access to a safe place to be, to safe quality classrooms to be in as their parents are working. So this is just the next right thing, the next big step for Alabama in making sure that we have a continuum of care for our workforce, and more importantly, our children and future Alabamians. So then we have a $22 million increase for pre-K that we've talked about. And also $1.5 million proposed investment for summer and after school programs that I'm sure Mark would love to talk to you more about. That we are tracking every single one of those line items. And I am very excited to support those line items. And please, please, please tell your representative to make sure that those line items stay in the budget. They're all in the introduced form of the ETF. So now we just got to make sure they pass both houses of the legislature so we can get the governor to sign them. So anyways, we will send you more information on that in the coming weeks.
Yeah, thanks, Collier. And I will say we are very excited about the 1.5 million in the Department of Early Childhood's budget. That's been an A+ priority for the last couple of years. And really that would go to fund summer and after school programs that would be community partnerships between local school districts, community-based organizations to build those high quality programs in a very first class pre-K kind of model, looking at diverse delivery and partnerships to look at the best quality programs. So that is something that we're very interested in. The budget is House Bill 135. And so just from a reference standpoint, separate from the budget, I'd also flag House Bill 331 by Representative Peblin Warren that would, which is the first grade readiness bill. This would put an assessment at the beginning of first grade to make sure that every child that comes to first grade has either been successfully completed kindergarten or they can pass a readiness assessment to make sure that they have the foundational skills that they need to do that. So that's another important one as well.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Just to clarify, that's only if they hadn't gone to kindergarten.
Yes, correct.
Because yeah, that does happen in some places, very infrequently, but it does happen. Okay, well, any closing thoughts from our chair or anyone else? Thank you for your time and great conversation, everybody. Thank you for all the great conversations going on in the chat. Please go to the link that I put in the chat. I'm going to actually just put it back in the chat and give you another second to click on that before we close today, because that's the Action Center. It's the link that starts out votervoice.net. And at our Action Center, you can actually contact your legislators right there. You don't have to even open up your email. Like, it will just send the email for you. You need to use your home address when you're entering information into the system so that we can match you with your exact state senator and state representative. And we populate the email for you right on our website, and it takes less than a minute to send that email. Let me know that when you've sent it, and we just need to keep the drumbeat going. Like some of our folks have said, you know, we need to create a surround sound of support for pre-K from, you know, every field, from parents and providers and everybody who cares about this, the business community. Bob, any last thoughts as we?
Yeah, I do have a
Go on.
comment. First of all, I want to thank you greatly, Allison, for putting this together on very short notice and with everything else we have going on with the legislature and board meetings and so forth. And also thank you for 10 years of service to the Alabama School Readiness Alliance and the task force. You've done a great job. You've helped pull people together in partnerships and getting information out. You've made a difference. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think my biggest reward is I get to enroll my child in the program for this upcoming school year. So it's really truly full circle. And Mark knows I've been waiting to say that this whole time. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And I hope everyone has a great week and that you will continue to contact your lawmakers because this is not a given. They really need to hear from you in order to support this funding. Thank you so much. Thanks to our speakers.